Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report News Hour for the 17th day by the heavenly calendar in the 16th year of Changi. Tim Elder sitting in for the second king, Cherniguk Youngjin-mun. New York has a communist mayor, or will have a communist mayor beginning January 1. We'll be getting into that. But first things first, let's do our routine, which is to look at the what's going on around the kingdom. And right now, Chongpyeong, Tennessee, 39 degrees and clear. Mostly sunny today, high of 64. Tonight, clear, low of 38. And father's hometown in Cheongju, North Pyongan Province, what is today North Korea, 42 degrees and partly cloudy. Tonight, getting down to 38, partly to mostly cloudy. Tomorrow, intervals of clouds and sunshine, high of 61. Northeast Pennsylvania at the Chonigung Palace, 41 degrees, mostly sunny. Partly sunny today, breezy and cooler, high of 50. Tonight, colder, mainly clear this evening, then mostly cloudy late, low of 28. Ooh, chilly, cover up. And let's see, at the Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, clear in 52, getting up to 83 today, and plenty of sunshine tonight, clear, low of 60. At the Suncheon Palace in Korea, excuse me, 53 and partly cloudy. Remaining partly cloudy through the night, low of 43. Tomorrow, pleasant with sunshine and a few clouds, high of 71. Gunma Palace is in Japan, 59 and clear. Partly cloudy tonight, low of 48. Tomorrow, beautiful with partial sunshine. I'm not sure what partial sunshine really means. You just get a piece of sunshine? I don't know. Anyway, high of 69. Guangzhou in Guangdong province, 80 degrees and cloudy, low of 73, humid with increasing cloudiness. Yeah, it's still pretty tropical there. And tomorrow, overcast and humid with a stray shower, high of 83. All right. And then let's go to Father's Word. Okay, here, you reach down there. And today, let's go to, yes, sin. Sin and restoration through indemnity. Good place to be, perhaps, right now. So let's see here. January 19th, 1986. We're in chapter 1, section 4. And just two paragraphs before the end of section 4. 통일교회가 안 나왔더라면 하나님을 모르게 돼 있습니다. So if the Unification Church had not appeared, people would not know God. 지금까지 인간 역사 이래로 영계와 육계에 대한 관계, 인간이 어떻게 이렇게 순한 길을 가며 하나님이 계시다면 왜 악한 세계를 만들어 이 인간을 이렇게 비참한 운명에 몰아놓아야 되느냐 하는 문제를 해결할 길이 없습니다. Well, that's a long sentence. Let's take it piece by piece. So, from the beginning of a history, there was no solution to questions such as the relationship between the spirit world and the physical world, how human beings came to go on this path of suffering that they are on now, and if there is a God, why did he create an evil world and force human beings to be in this very, very pichaman is what I can't remember the English right now. Pichaman is anyway terrible. Okay, that's a bit of a cop-out translation, but it's the best I can do right now. Tragic, kind of, terrible and tragic fate. Why? So there would be no way to answer these questions. Okay. 그러나, but 오늘날 today 통일교회 교인들은 이게 인간 책임 분담 때문이라는 것을 알고 있습니다. But Unification Church members today know that this is all because of the human portion of responsibility. 그것은 놀라운 사실입니다. This is an amazing, or he says surprising. This is a surprising fact. Okay, let's stick with the word. All right, 놀라운 사실입니다. Okay. I was trying to think of Pichama, but I still can't think of it. All right. Anyway, yes. And you see there that in that paragraph, Father uses the word Unification Church twice. And I'm beginning to go to the uh, posts on X by Family Federation members, especially Family Federation spokespeople, and object to their use of the term Unification Church. In fact, I made such a post earlier today, or a reply actually to one of their posts, because in discussing Hak Ja Han's situation, one of the sort of, I guess she's a spokesperson, made reference to the term Unification Church, and I said something to the effect that the term Unification Church refers to a community of faith that accepts Reverend Sun Myung Moon as the returning Jesus and the King of Kings, and follows his teachings. And then I said, the Han group does not qualify. No response to that. Uh, you know, I doubt that I will get a response, but I hope that some people. And I plan to do that more. And also, I'm referencing the Bible quote, Acts 3:19, which shall I take time right now to look it up? I don't remember. Let's see here. I'll take too much time. Acts 3:19. Check it for yourself. Anyway, it's about repentance. Anyway, so because the king in his statement on Hak Chan's situation said that we are praying for her repentance and that she will return to Father as a lay member. Let me see, maybe 3:19. Acts 3:19, which says, repent then and turn to God so that your sins may be wiped out, and that times of refreshing may come from the Lord. All right, Acts 3:19. I think that's a very appropriate verse for Hak Ja Han right now, that she needs to repent. Anyway, she has about, 19 hours now, 19 more hours before she needs to report back to her prison cell. And according to the Korean media, she's been receiving a operation on her eye for an advanced case of a glaucoma. But anyway, the interesting thing that I've found a few times now is that as people suffer, as they experience pain, especially pain that they realize is leading to death, they become more humble. Yeah, they become more humble, and their minds or heart begin to open up to um, to God's truth more and more, I think. So I think it is possible that she will benefit from this current painful experience by being able to um, understand that she is not God, and that understand that she has betrayed Father, and understand that she needs to repent of her sins and submit herself to Father's chosen heir and successor. I believe that is possible, because I've seen some changes in people who were very, very difficult to deal with until they got in a situation where they realized that death was coming, and then they began to change, and actually, in terms of their spiritual growth, they may have accomplished more growth in the last 20 weeks of their life than they did in the previous 20 years, I think. It's There's nothing like perhaps death or impending death to concentrate one's mind, I guess, or something like that. Yeah. So I think it's all part of Father's love for the woman he had as his wife for about 52 years. And I think because of his love, he wants her to repent, and he wants her to humble herself to his chosen representative, and to his youngest son, Hyungjin, to the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin. Okay, so I believe that the father is working on her heart, and he is he's a pretty strong character. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we will see. We will see. We will see what will happen. But I am extremely hopeful that that we will see an incredible miracle happen in her heart. Yes, that'd be great, because my great concern is that she may go to spirit world without repenting, because then what will she be in spirit world? She will be an evil spirit in spirit world, and she will be a powerful evil spirit, because she will be in pretty close unity with Satan, and that will create a very powerful force in spirit world that will make things difficult for us here in the physical world. So I think it's important that she repents and separates herself from Satan while she is still in her physical body. Anyway, so enough of that, enough of that. But we are doing this, I'm doing this, and the king is doing this, we are all doing this here out of love for her and out of concern for her eternal life. Okay? She will not return as the true mother, but if she returns as a lay member, uh, she can still have a positive role in God's providence. Okay. All right. So let's see what's happening. Speaking of speaking of Satan and evil spirits, Wednesday's elections around the country, in a few places around the country, were pretty much of a disaster for the Republican Party. Of course, you know the results, I'm sure, by now. New York City elected its Muslim communist as mayor, and he'll be inaugurated January 1. And New Jersey elected a Democratic governor. Well, that's not surprising. Virginia, until now, they've had a Republican governor until now, but they've decided to switch to a Democrat as well. California passed what is it, a resolution that may result in the redistricting the congressional districts so that the Democrats get perhaps 4, maybe even 5 additional seats in the House of Representatives, making it that much easier for the Democrats to retake the House in the next year's midterm elections. Although in Minnesota, the socialist candidate did not win, so perhaps that was a small, thin, uh, sort of a victory, a small victory there. But anyway, but New York City, oh my, New York City, of course, is the mecca of capitalism, but now people there are blaming capitalism for all their ills and for the ills of the world, for the climate and for everything else. And of course, it was, I think, large, both in New Jersey and in Virginia as well. It was to a great extent a rallying of the troops against President Trump. So in that sense, it's not too surprising, because after the party in the White House changes, after one party takes over from another party, then the next year or two, the party that lost the presidential election tends to gain, and that's the sort of the pattern of a political history in the U.S. over the last 100 years. But it is unfortunate, especially what's going on in New York is very unfortunate. Anyway, but I noticed this one statistic in particular: 84% of Gen Z women voted for Mamdani, right? 84% of Gen Z. That's especially the ages 18 to 29. 84% of them voted for Mamdani. And this simply underscores something that Kukchini was saying in his, the king has been saying also, what the king has been saying also about sort of demographics and voting, that young unmarried women are the most sort of most leftist, go farthest to the left. But then as they get married and then they start having children, then they start going more towards the conservatives. And I've actually seen this. I've seen this play out before my eyes within my own family. Not a Gen Zer, but what would you call what is she now? 37, yeah, 37. What would you call a 37-year-old? Anyway, whatever that whatever it is, she's in that group. And sure enough, yes, she went out and voted for the Republican this time, and lightning did not strike her dead. it's it's pretty amazing what life lessons will do to your political leanings. But yes, so in the Chattanooga Constitution, there's no uh, there's no age limitation or other qualification for voting in federal elections. Right? In the United States of America Constitution, it says anyone who is a citizen of the United States and 18 years or older can vote. But that content is not in the Chattanooga Constitution. And instead, it leaves this question up to individual states. And it says that uh, whoever is qualified to vote in the largest sort of a chamber of the state legislature, of each state legislature, is also qualified to vote in federal elections. So the qualification for voting may likely can differ from state to state. And some states may, go back to what it was 250 years ago, saying, okay, well, you got to be a man, and you got to own property, and you have to be paying taxes, and then you can vote. That's how it was. Of course, you also had to be white back then. I think free blacks, could they vote? I'm not sure. Probably not. Anyway, uh, so point is that the qualifications could likely will differ from state to state. I think the idea that you have to be paying taxes, you have to be paying taxes in order to vote, that actually sounds good to me. Right now we have about half of the population of the United States, the adult population of the United States, um, not paying taxes, I think, where I read somewhere. And we have what, 42 million people, we learned recently, 42 million Americans are dependent on the government for their groceries. And not all of these some of them are children, but let's say, I think usually, what was the number? 2/3, I think. I think 2/3 of 42 million most likely would be eligible to vote, which is what, 10, 15, 14, about 14 million. So I'm sorry, 2/3, that'd be 28 million. So 28 million people who are receiving food stamps are also voting. So obviously they're going to vote for the candidate that's going to give them more free stuff. And that's exactly what happened in New York City this time, right? Mamdani says, I'll give you free bus fares. No one has to pay for bus anymore. I will freeze rents in certain areas or certain buildings. I will, what else? Oh, yeah, free childcare up to 5 years old. Okay. Free, 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 free. So obviously, then people who are dependent on the government are going to say, yeah, 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 that's great, that's great. So who's going to pay for all this? Well, the millionaires are going to pay for all this. And, not all of them are going to move out because some of them, I think, actually voted for Mamdani. I mean, the idea of guilt is pretty powerful. And I suspect that some will remain in New York City and somehow assuage their guilt by paying these higher taxes that I'm sure are coming to people in New York, perhaps in the sales tax or income tax or whatever. So anyway, we'll see what happens. What happens? So President Trump says we must choose communism or common sense, and um, I would not be completely confident that people are going to choose common sense because there a lot of people are just completely off their rockers right now. The day after Republicans suffered bruising electoral losses, including a victory by Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani in New York's mayoral election, President Donald Trump said Wednesday that Americans must choose between communism and common sense. He added that under his administration, he will never let communism prevail. After last night's results, the decision facing all Americans could not be more clear, Trump said in a speech in Miami, marking the first anniversary of his election to a second term. The speech aired live on Newsmax, etc. We have a choice between communism and common sense, he said. Does that make sense to you? It's common sense or communism. And you took a you take a look back 1,000 years. It hasn't worked. If it worked, we'd be using it, I guess, but it hasn't worked. Our opponents are offering an economic nightmare. We're delivering an economic miracle. They want higher spending for government and illegal aliens. We want bigger paychecks for American workers and American families, and that's what we're delivering. You see that they stand for crime and chaos and corruption. We stand for law and order and justice and also strong borders. They put America last, we put America first. As long as I'm in the White House, the United States is not going communist in any way, shape, or form. We'll stop it. We're going to stop it, stop this nonsense. Well, I hope so. But, as long as I'm in the White House, well, he's only going to be in the White House for another 3 years and a few months. Uh, you know, so what happens after that? Can J.D. Vance stop it? And what it's possible that what happened in New York City will become a kind of a cancer that will spread to New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, to all these places, and also to certain parts of Pennsylvania that Philadelphia. Philadelphia basically runs Pennsylvania. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh together, but especially Philadelphia. And then, of course, California, all right, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, all these places, they could fall to the idiocy of communism. And then where are you going to be, right? So I would not take it for granted that America is going to choose common sense over communism, the way that President Trump seems to hope. So he ran on an aggressive socialist agenda, promising fair, free transit and rent freezes, higher taxes on corporations and high earners, also gained attention for his outspoken criticism of Israel and support for the Palestinian cause. But think about it. Less than 25 years after 9/11, New York has a Muslim mayor. And it's the people who are too young to remember 9/11 who were his strongest supporters. Young women, 18 to 29, were his strongest, and I guess continue to be his strongest. Oh, and by the way, his transition team is all female. That'll solve the problem, right? Get rid of that testosterone. No testosterone allowed in New York City. Leave it at the border. You must get rid of your testosterone as you enter the Lincoln Tunnel or the George Washington Bridge. Oh my goodness! Yes, all female transition team. Yes, that's going to work real well. All right. Okay. Well, that's kind of a virtue signaling thing, uh, and that's I think it's a little bit. I think it is a little bit funny because. All right. Okay, let's see here. Uh, we'll see. We'll see how this works out. But anyway, President Trump also is celebrating the first anniversary of his victory a year ago. A year ago. Yeah, so, all right. And then let's see here. Um, Mamdani says, so what is he saying now? Oh, yeah, he's coming out swinging. No problem too large for government to solve. See, he wants government to just grow and grow and grow. Yes. And Wednesday on the Alex Marlow Show, host and Breitbart editor-in-chief Alex Marlow discussed Tuesday's elections and Zoran Mamdani's victory speech. Marlow said the government's going to solve your problems. That is the goal. Government tends to create more power for itself and not solve your problems, and that completely missed this guy. Right. It's certainly true. Certainly true. So that means more concentration of power, and concentration of power means what? More corruption and less freedom, and um, so things are going to get pretty ugly in New York. I expect over the next, what is his term, 4 years? If whatever the term is, I guess it's probably 4 years. Yeah. So will New Yorkers learn their lesson? Probably not. Well, some of them will. Some of them, I guess, will. But the 18 to 29-year-old women, some of them will get married, some of them will have children, and some of them will say, whoa, what was I thinking back then? But it will probably be too late by then. There will be sort of sky-high taxes and oh, and by the way, they're going to strengthen their sanctuary laws so that they're going to become a magnet for illegal aliens as well. Oh my goodness, my goodness, my goodness. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Usually I don't get involved in the sort of the back and forth in Washington, but it's getting serious, right? It's getting serious. The food stamps, okay, well, somehow I guess the states are kind of hanging on and giving them partial payments for November. But now, starting tomorrow, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, says they're going to have to cut the number of flights or flight traffic by 10% in 40 airports around the country, uh, unless the government is opened before then, and it doesn't look like it's going to be. We also hear some news that Democrats are beginning to look at a way to sort of retreat and get the government open again. We'll have to see how that turns out, but this thing is getting pretty serious, pretty serious. Um, uh, I don't know. I'm not in the U.S. and all these things always look worse from the outside than they do from the inside. But frankly, if I'm in the U.S., I don't know if I want to fly anymore for now, right? Until the FAA is up and running, because without those people, doing the traffic control, the air traffic control, it's quite dangerous, especially in the busy airports. Yeah. Um, I don't know if I'm comfortable flying in any airport right now. Yeah, I may want to drive or maybe even take a bus. What do you think? All right. So President Trump, of course, is saying, well, get rid of the filibuster. Right now, the filibuster is that rule in the Senate, and it's a rule. Okay, it's not in the law. It's not a law or anything. It's a rule that the Republicans can change any time. But the rule says that for most things, not for everything, but for most law bills to pass, there have to be at least 60 votes in favor. And the idea of this, and it goes back quite a long time, well over 100 years, the idea is to make the senator a more collegial organization and leads to compromise, right? Because even though the Republicans, who right now have 53 seats, even though they have the majority in the Senate, there are a lot of things they cannot do because they don't have 60 votes. And so that forces them to compromise. That's the idea that this filibuster rule was originally created for. And originally in the Senate, there was no rule. And so what happened, because in the Senate, there's no limit to how long a person can talk. And so people would talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, until they finally collapsed. And so at one point they said, well, let's not do that anymore. Let's have this rule that got to have 60 votes. So it is called cloture. And uh, President Trump is saying, get rid of the rule. And once you get rid of the rule, then 53 votes, you can do anything you want. But Mike Johnson, who's Speaker of the House, not the Senate, but he's also a constitutional scholar, is saying, no, 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 that's a terrible idea. Because at some point in the future, the Democrats are going to control the Senate. The Republicans cannot expect to have control of the Senate forever. And when that happens and there's no 60 vote rule anymore, then what are they going to do? They're going to do anything they want. They're going to bring in Puerto Rico and DC as states. And both of those will probably have Democrat senators. That will mean the Democrats automatically get 4 more seats in the Senate beyond what they already have. They will also bring in a lot of gun control if they don't have to worry about the 60 vote rule and all sorts of other stuff that the Democrats have been wanting to do in the Senate, but the Republicans have been stopping them from doing it because of the 60 vote rule. Now, here, so to kind of counter that, this man, Senator Banks of, where is he from? Indiana, is saying, well, listen, when that happens, when the Democrats take control of the Senate, they're going to get rid of that rule anyway, right? And they're still going to do whatever they want. So why don't we be the ones to get rid of the rule and first do what we want? Because once they get into power, they're going to bring in Puerto Rico and DC and have 4 more seats in the Senate and make sure that the Republicans will have an extremely difficult time of ever gaining control of the Senate ever again, because with those 4 more seats. So that also makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. He says, President Trump is exactly right. I understand that why he's frustrated. I'm frustrated too. I'm brand new to the Senate, and it makes no sense to me why we have to comply with Democrats when we won the election. Banks noted that Republicans now control the White House, and Senate, a realignment. He said that should allow them to do everything we've ever dreamed of doing as Republicans. It's not just about reopening the government. He said it's about balancing the budget, about voter ID laws, about codifying President Trump's tariffs and his trade policy and being tough on China. Banks argued that keeping the filibuster only delays the inevitable. We know the Democrats are going to nuke the filibuster the first chance they get, he said. So why don't we move forward and pass President Trump's agenda and go down in history? He said Trump warned senators that inaction could cost them control of Congress. And that makes a lot of sense too. But anyway, I'm glad I'm not in that position, in that situation. But I'm sure that somehow they will, I'm sure that they will figure out what to do some way. But anyway, so that situation is going on right now in the Senate. And well, yeah, Senator Banks, I think, makes some good points there. We'll see whether his colleagues listen to him. But he's, like he says, he's a freshman senator. This is his first term in the Senate, so he may not be so powerful there. All right, let's see what else is going on. Let's see on Breitbart. Let's look at Breitbart. What's Breitbart doing these days? Of course, they're leading with Mamdani, says he will prove there's no problem too large for government to solve. Right. Big government is coming. Immigration rights activists ask Los Angeles Dodgers to decline White House visit over ICE raids. You know, these. But it's sort of the custom for teams that win, championships, the baseball or football or even Olympic gold medalists or sports figures who excel in their field. Once they've won, they get invited to the White House. That's sort of a custom, right? But in recent years, it's become political. I think this probably started during President Trump's first term. And now these teams are being pressured to make this an opportunity for a political statement, which I think is unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate. All right. Let's see if there's anything else. Trump, I think we have inflation lower than a normal number. Well, no, a low, normal number should be zero, so it's not normal. And in a free market, in a free market where there's free competition, producers are competing with each other to produce high quality products more cheaply and more efficiently. So more cheaply. So they go through their process of production and they try to figure out how can we do this more cheaply? What can we, how, so, and that's how they compete. So in a free market economy, prices should be going down. Prices should be going down. So even 0% inflation actually is more than it should be. Prices should be going down. But we know that governments hate deflation because that makes it more difficult for them to repay their debts. Inflation awards debtors and taxes savers. Deflation awards savers and taxes debtors. And the government, of course, is not a saver. They don't believe in saving. No, they believe in borrowing 38 trillion now, the US government, 38 trillion. And so they want to make sure that this 38 trillion keeps getting devalued through inflation. Okay. So that means that savers, people who are doing the 401ks and the IRAs and all this kind of stuff, they are actually losing. Because unless you are, oh, I'll put my 401k money in an S&P index. Well, the S&P index is not going to keep up with inflation, the real inflation, right? The real inflation, not just the government official number inflation. All right, let's see here. And Senator Kennedy wants to introduce bills to withhold pay from lawmakers during government shutdown. Sounds like a good idea. That guy has a lot of good ideas. He's from Louisiana. All right. And let's see here. Marlo says Mamdani's speech proves the great replacement is real. All right. And Bernie Sanders, he also wants to maintain the filibuster. Okay, he understands. And Chicago activists cry victim. Okay, Governor Shapiro, that would be Pennsylvania, sent voters sent a clear message rejecting Trump's chaos. All right, and here the Department of Transportation and the Federal Aviation Administration announced flight reductions at 40 major airports due to government shutdown. Okay. And what Mamdani's victory reveals about America's new class politics. And they're saying, our time is now. Yeah, so they're really hyped up, aren't they? And let's take a look at this story here. See what this is about. Okay. Yeah, who's this? Our time is now. Who is this guy? This guy's what? What kind of patch does he have here? I can't see. Doesn't look like not a policeman, but someone. Okay, this is Mamdani, and I think maybe that's his wife, I think. I'm guessing. Okay, they have all sorts of people there. A few months ago, he was known to most New Yorkers in polling in this. He was unknown to most New Yorkers. It's polling in the single digits in the Democratic primary for this year's mayoral race. This week, the 34-year-old Democratic Socialist didn't just win the mayor's race, he shattered turnout records, assembled a coalition that defied conventional political categories, and revealed fault lines in American economic life that neither party has adequately addressed. So how is it that he was able to, rise like that, like a meteor? Well, Soros money. Alex Soros, George's son, came out after the victory and sort of congratulated him and said, "Yeah, this is great," things like that. Obviously, yes, quite obviously, Soros was behind this situation. In '76, something similar happened with Carter. Jimmy Carter was the governor of Georgia, and he was not known around the country. And he was able to rise up and defeat Gerald Ford, who was the incumbent at the time in the presidential election. And again, there, the Democrats had a lot of money coming in from all sorts of places. And the Republicans were not prepared to come against that. And I think here as well, of course, in New York, the major opposition to Mamdani was not a Republican, it was another Democrat. It was Cuomo, who lost in the primary, but then ran again as an independent and lost as an independent, but he was the closest challenger. Over a million New Yorkers voted for Mamdani, the highest total for any mayoral candidate since 1969. He won with around 80% of the vote in Prospect Heights and Park Slope, and saw similar support in Bushwick and all these places here. And his support swept through gentrified Brooklyn like a wildfire, and then did something nobody predicted. He flipped working class Black and Latino neighborhoods that had rejected him just months earlier in the primary. Yeah, this is the power of Soros money. But here's what matters: the margins tell you everything about where his election coalition lived. In Brownsville, one of New York's poorest neighborhoods, Mamdani went from a 40-point loss in the primary to an 18-point win in the general. So Cuomo won by 40 points, right? I guess that's what this is saying in the primary. In East New York, he won by 22 points. In Mott Haven, East Harlem, he won by 22 and 30 points, respectively. These are real victories, but compare them to his margins in gentrified Brooklyn and other places. He didn't just win these neighborhoods, he achieved the kind of margins you see in uncontested elections. New York City mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani, what? Center right. Oh, I see. This is referring to a photograph. All right. He's not saying, Breitbart is not saying that Mamdani is center right. He's referring, they're referring to this photograph up here. Okay, center right. That's for a minute there, I thought, what? Center right. Okay, and somehow they misplaced the caption for that photograph. Right, Bart, come on, editors. Anyway, the immediate reaction for many conservatives has been predictable dismissal, another victory for Park Slope socialists with graduate degrees and oatmeal lattes. They say, hey, what's wrong with oatmeal lattes? Anyway, they say performative radicalism and luxury politics for people who've never struggled a day of their lives. But this reading misses what actually happened. Before the election, we said that conservatives were making a mistake by writing off the economic pain of New York City's downwardly mobile professional class. The results proved our assessment correct, but in ways that are even more striking than the primary suggested. Mamdani didn't win because affluent Brooklynites suddenly became Marxists. He won big because he identified something real that cuts across traditional class boundaries, a pervasive sense that the fundamental bargain of American economic life has broken down. And I think so, yeah. People talk about, a K type recovery. In other words, K is where, in K, the letter K, you have one line going up and another line going down. And so that means that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And I think probably that is the case, especially as AI comes on and people, if they have not lost jobs to AI, are fearful that they will lose jobs to AI. Look carefully at Mamdani's coalition, and you see two distinct phenomena that shouldn't be confused with each other. The core of the engine of his victory was the gentrified neighborhoods of Brooklyn, Park Slope, Prospect Heights, Bushwick, Fort Greene. These delivered 60 to 70-point margins. This wasn't tactical voting or lesser of evils thinking. This was enthusiasm. These neighborhoods turned out at near presidential levels and voted as a bloc. These aren't wealthy enclaves in any traditional sense. They're populated by people who did everything right according to the old playbook, got educated, found professional jobs, moved to the city for opportunity. Many of them earned 80,000, 100,000, even 150,000 a year. And they're financially underwater. In the nicer neighborhoods and good school districts in Brooklyn, median rent for a 2-bedroom apartment available on the market now exceeds $4,600 per month. Wow, that's amazing. That means a household earning $150,000 comfortably in the nation's top 10% is spending over a third of their income just on rent, with nothing left to save for a down payment they'll never be able to afford anyway. These are people with good jobs who live with roommates into their 30s, who've given up on home ownership, who've delayed having children because they literally cannot afford the space. This is Mamdani's real base, not trust fund socialists, but what we might call the professionally precarious. They have credentials and decent incomes, but just holding on barely to housing, jobs, and their social position. They followed the script they were handed and discovered that the promised rewards had been replaced with a treadmill. They own nothing, and they do not like it. The expansion into non-white working class neighborhoods was real, but different in character. Mamdani won Brownsville by 18 points. Da, 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 da. He successfully built a coalition, but the energy and enthusiasm came from gentrified Brooklyn. Between the primary and the general election, Mamdani flipped the Bronx by 29 points and made substantial gains in working class Black and Latino neighborhoods across the city. This is significant, but not because it means his coalition was evenly distributed across class lines. The working class expansion matters because it shows his message could travel beyond gentrified Brooklyn, even if that's not where his passionate base lived. A teacher earning $120,000 paying $4,000 in rent, that's a month, right? A month. And a working class family in the Bronx facing eviction are experiencing different versions of the same crisis. Mamdani's platform, rent freezes, free childcare, expanded public services, spoke to both, even if only one group turned out with 70-point enthusiasm. This is what made him electable citywide rather than just a Park Slope phenomenon. The gentrified neighborhoods provided the energy, the volunteers, the donations, the intensity. The working class neighborhoods provided enough votes to make the math work. Conservatives who have spent years building a coalition of working class Americans to make America great again should be paying attention. In tomorrow's Breitbart Business Digest, we'll expand on how conservatives should react to the election. All right, so we look forward to that tomorrow, I guess, right? Okay. So yes, certainly this is a or should be a wake-up call to conservatives around the country. I think that's why I say this could be a cancer that spreads to other major cities and to other parts of America. We'll have to see what happens. We'll have to see what happens, especially with the governor's election in New York, which I think is coming up in not too distant future. So yes, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of the largest bank in America, obviously does a lot of business in New York City, was saying that a reporter was asking what is he going to do about this, because Jamie Dimon obviously believes in capitalism. But I think the capitalism that Jamie Dimon believes in is part of the problem. But anyway, the reporter was asking, he said, well, let's see what his policies are. I'm interested in, is he going to have policies and carry out policies that improve education, improve healthcare, improve law and order and stuff like that. Jamie Dimon is an extremely political person. Otherwise, obviously, he would not be where he is right now if he were not. And I think he may know in his heart of hearts that Mamdani is not going to do any of that. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see. Okay. We shall see. Jamie Dimon, by the way, lives in New York City apparently, and so he will be. He'll be paying. He'll be paying for what Mamdani does for the government-operated grocery stores, for example. All right, let's see. We're now looking at the Epic Times. FAA cutting air traffic. Okay, and that's going to, even more than the food stamps, that's going to hit a lot of people, isn't it? I think I will also be affected by that because I'm planning on going to the U.S. pretty soon. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Yeah. All right. And cartels control tribal lands in California, grow drugs and impose narco slavery. We had that report already. And Trump's unpredictability keeps Beijing off balance, according to analysts. Yes. According to one analyst, the US president's volatile approach forced China to reveal its best card. In other words, forced China to do that uh, restriction with the rare earths and the refusal to purchase US soybeans and stuff. But because they've played that card now, the US can find ways around those. And so it's actually probably going to backfire against China. We'll have to see. Okay. All right. And post-China rare earth monopoly era is approaching as Beijing's strategy backfires, according to experts. Yeah, so because rare earths can be found in other places. Turns out Greenland, maybe this is why, or one reason President Trump was interested in Greenland. Greenland has rare earths and other areas. Yeah. U.S. itself has rare earths, uh, but doesn't want to endure the environmental degradation that goes along with digging them out of the ground. Yeah. All right, let's see here. And 6 takeaways from the Supreme Court hearing on Trump's tariffs. So the Supreme Court, as I mentioned already, is hearing that case on whether Trump has the power to impose all these tariffs on countries. And they had oral arguments, and we shall see what they will decide. We don't know when they're going to decide. It could be as late as next June, or it could be very soon. The Supreme Court held high stakes arguments on November 5th, which was what, yesterday, Wednesday, yeah, over the legality of President Donald Trump's global tariffs. For nearly 3 hours, the justices probed whether Trump's reciprocal and fentanyl tariffs were authorized by a 1970s emergency powers law. So the issue is whether the president can do this or whether he has to have Congress do it. Right? But if the Supreme Court says, well, Congress should be doing it, then nothing's going to happen. Right? We know that. Multiple federal courts have held that Trump's tariffs exceed what Congress authorized him to do under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. It's difficult to predict how the justices will rule. Some justices seemed mostly skeptical of the tariffs, but others were more difficult to read. Their questions explored whether tariffs are taxes, how much courts should defer to Trump's discretion, and whether the administration is reading too much into the law. Here are some of the main issues in the case and how the justices discussed them. Well, let's not go into this whole thing. Okay, I think. But President Trump has described this as a life and death matter for America. He says that if the justices take this power away from him, then America will be devastated. Whereas stock analysts say that if the Supreme Court strikes down these tariffs, then stocks will explode upward. I don't know. I do not know. May God's will be done. Okay, may God's will be done. MGWBD, I guess we can abbreviate that. Okay. All right. Okay, let's see what else is on Epic Times. I think that's about it on Epic Times. Okay. Yeah, that Louisville air crash, that's really terrible. But yeah, we'll have to see what that is. But I don't think it's not the kind of story that I cover here on the King's Report. Right. Okay. Let's maybe we can go back to Newsmax. Okay, let me share this with you again. Okay. As I mentioned on Tuesday, Dick Cheney died. People are saying all sorts of nice things about him. He was a pretty strong war hawk, wasn't he? But anyway, he died, and you're supposed to say nice things about people when they die. So that's what they're doing. Okay, and this whole thing with Carlson, I'm not getting involved in that. The Jewish leaders were resigning from heritage foundations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Lure faces years of security upgrades after heist. Apparently, the password for the museum where they had that heist, that's a theft, was a six-letter word. And I don't know if that's in this article, but that's what I saw elsewhere. And, you know, I don't think that's enough. You know, uh, I mean, come on, my bank account has a much stronger password than that. Not going to tell you more than that, but six-letter word for protecting, hundreds of millions of dollars, probably not the best idea. Yeah, okay. Yep, not the best idea. So maybe this is a good opportunity for people to check their passwords. If you are, for example, protecting your bank account with a six-letter password, I would recommend maybe doing a little bit more thinking on that. Okay. All right. And Democrats' election wins complicate shutdown talks because now the Democrats are energized. Yes. Now their base is saying, yeah, fight, fight, fight. We don't care how much pain we cause. We want to fight, fight, fight. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Now, Elon Musk is looking for a $1 trillion compensation package. Uh, all right. Good luck with that. Okay. But, this kind of thing, who was it? Well, maybe it was Elon Musk was talking about, this is a matter of capital placement. In other words, some people are, people have various abilities and powers, and some people are good at determining where capital should go, right? And so if someone is extremely gifted or extremely capable in uh, capital allotment, I think that was the expression is, deciding where capital should be placed, then maybe go ahead and put $1 trillion in that person's possession. Obviously, they're not going to spend it all on scrambled eggs. I mean, what was it? Bill Gates was saying, after a certain point, a burger is just a burger, whether you have $100,000 or $1 billion. A burger is just a burger. So where that other money is going is it's going into various businesses or savings vehicles or other stuff like that. So giving a person $1 trillion compensation seems like a lot, but maybe not. Maybe that's the best way. Maybe that's the best thing for the American economy. Okay. Anyway, because this guy certainly has a lot of ideas. Not all of them pan out, but he certainly has a lot of ideas. And uh, putting $1 trillion in his bank account might be good for America and the world as well. Okay. Ukraine and Russia still going at it. Okay. And Mamdani victory signals earth-shaking shift in New York City politics, obviously. And already the fire department chief resigns as soon as Mamdani won the election. And Van Jones, who was a conservative commentator, has flagged, or I guess I guess he's not so conservative. Anyway, he flagged Mamdani's character switch after the win. So political analyst Van Jones sounded the alarm over Zoran Mamdani's sudden character switch in his New York mayoral victory speech, saying the Democratic Socialist's combative tone marked a stark departure from his previously calm and measured campaign persona. So this was all scripted by the Soros organization, right? So he made the comments during a CNN panel discussion. I think the Mamdani that we saw in the campaign trail was a lot more calm, was a lot warmer, who was a lot more embracing, was not present in that speech, Jones said of Mamdani. I think he missed a chance tonight to open up and bring more people into the tent. I think his tone was sharp, I think he was using the microphone in a way that he was almost yelling. And that's not the Mamdani that we've seen on TikTok and the great interviews and stuff like that. Okay, and the conventional wisdom would tell you that I am far from the perfect candidate. I am young. Okay, this is Mamdani speaking. Okay. I felt like it was a bit of a character switch here where the warm, open, embracing guy that's close to working people was not on stage tonight. He's very young and he's just pulled off something very, very difficult. And I wouldn't write him off, but I think he missed an opportunity to open himself up tonight. All right. All right, gotta go. And so thank you for joining today. And I'll see you again tomorrow. And we will see what happens in the next 24 hours. God bless, Godspeed. May his kingdom come quickly.